What's going on, Hood to Hooded Podcast? Welcome back to the show with your host, Dr. Chief. Today, we will be uncovering the cost to print $1 billion. So, my question for you guys is how much do you think it costs to print $1 billion? Any takers know how much it costs to print $1 billion? I'm sure nobody really knows this. Nobody really thinks about this, but what really got us to researching this topic is because of the Epstein files. Because we were thinking like this guy, this pedophile was a billionaire. But what does that really mean when you're a colonizer and a billionaire and in control of printing the money? Now, printing money goes way back when they were doing civil war and they needed money to continue to enslave the indigenous melanated autochthonous Niji, the Amerindians, who have been reclassified. How many bales of cotton does it take to print $1 billion? Why do we ask this? Because you have people like Epstein and you have people who own these companies. They're all connected to these presidents who, by the way, created the treasury departments and the tax departments and all of these departments to keep people enslaved, not only mentally, but physically. Yes, the cotton plantations don't exist in the way they did before, but they still exist, and you are literally still picking cotton. Because what is money made out of? Cotton. And what is cotton? A plant, right? Cotton is a plant. We are discussing this today because so many people spend their whole entire lives working for money. You guys see all the news about Epstein and these files and this crazy ass government and how they continue to hold us back, and white supremacy is crumbling down right before our very eyes. Now, the reason why I'm not really too shocked about Epstein and all the BS that he got going on is because they're talking about traffic. I don't know what is censored on these apps or not, so I gotta talk in code a little bit. But you know what Epstein was doing, right? Y'all know what he was doing, but the reason why us as Niji feel like this is a slap in the face because y'all been doing this. Y'all been around here slave raiding, slave catching, enslaving people, black code, kidnapping, school to prison pipeline. This is nothing new for the government. But some kind of way, when it happens to their own, it is blown out of proportion. It is blown up. It's just like all over. But what happened when it happened to us? Why y'all didn't put it on the news when it was happening to us? There's something going around where it says they got more smoke for Michael Vick than they got for Epstein. They got more smoke for Michael Vick than they got for Trump. Before we get into the cost to print $1 billion, because I really want y'all to unlock this. I don't want nobody else to walk from this live feeling like they finna go slave the rest of their life for money. I need you to take the shortcut. I need you to go from hood to hood in a shortcut. Because working every day, 40 hours a week, I know they lied to the youth. They lied to the youth. They lied to me when I was a young person and told me the same thing. Go get a job, work yourself. I was such a hard worker from the age of 14, really 12, 13, doing hair in the hood. I'm saying, trying to make $1, trying to escape poverty, trying to buy school clothes sometimes, like doing my own hair. You learn quickly as a teenager. You just feel like, dang, I gotta go to work. No. Why aren't we teaching our youth about things like trading, the stock market, real estate? They get out and they just want to work because they got bills. The hustle culture is ruining the youth. And not only is it ruining the youth, it's ruining the adults too. Because you got adults walking around here who can't retire, who can't quit working because the economy is fucked up. Let's just call it what it is. Meanwhile, you got so-called billionaires walking around here buying islands that once belonged to the indigenous people. And I'm not talking about the Native Americans. Please don't think I'm talking about y'all. I'm not talking about the $5 Indians. I'm not talking about the pretendians. I'm talking about the black people here in America who don't know that they indigenous to this land. They think they African American. You don't know no goddamn body in Africa. when I did my genealogy. And if you connected to me, my genealogy is your genealogy that you might not know. You're indigenous to America. I know they taught it in school that the Native Americans was here. And I even remember, guys, the sad part is I remember being a little girl in Tallahassee, aka the home of the Appalachie, which they call the Seminole now, and them taking us to a piece of land. They were trying to brainwash us at this very young age. When we were in elementary school, they used to take us to this big field, and they had these pretendians out there pretending like this was their culture. They had the teepee. I remember it like it was yesterday. Since then they turned that area of sacred land, it must have been, into a cesspool area. You pass by, it's really stink. If you in Tallahassee, you know what I'm talking about. There's only one place in Tally where it smells like that, by the airport. Well, they used to take us out there and teach us about Native Americans to brainwash us, to make us think that this chocolate was not indigenous to Turtle Island. I need y'all to go look up the emblem of America, where they got the feather headrest, and it's a married Indian, melanated woman. These are the images they want to hide, which is why we touching and digging into Epstein ass today. We digging into Trump ass today. Well, I shouldn't probably say it like that. But we talking about this because I want us to unlock the truth behind money. See, money is all a belief system. And yes, it's true, if you got money, it makes life a lot easier. But at the same time, if you work in 40, 50 years and you get to be 70 and you don't work your whole life, working, you have nothing to show for it. You did not learn how to use money properly. You looked at money as something that was so obsolete. You let money control your mind. You thought that getting to $1 billion, you was going to get there by working hour for hour. You thought that from a teenage to now that some kind of way going to work was going to make us a millionaire. They lied, guys. I'm here to tell you how much the lie really hurts. So, we talked a little bit about hustle culture. How you get out of high school and then it's straight to work. A lot of parents even kick their kids out before they even have a chance to catch their bearings, as they say. They have a chance to even get some credit. They don't teach them shit. I was one of those kids who, I wouldn't say I was forced out of the house. I was put in different situations where I was flip-flopping from house to house, and eventually ended up living with one of my aunts in high school. But I had such a grown, mature mind that I was ready to get the hell out the house. I ain't listening to what my grandma said. She said stay a child as long as you can, and guess what? A lot of us don't listen to that shit. We be like, stay a child as long as you can. I'm trying to get an apartment. I'm trying to get some bills. Please, why are you rushing to pay bills? I wish somebody would have stopped me from rushing to get out of the house. And I ain't gonna even lie. My auntie was like, you don't need to leave. And I was like, I'm grown. Why did I do that? This is why if you could go back in time, you would change a lot of stuff. I know there's some things I could change, but you can't live with regrets. You just got to learn your lesson and move the hell on. Which is why if you're a young adult, I need you to listen about how much it costs for this government to print $1 billion. I want y'all to be thinking about a number in your head. The government prints money, right? Every dollar you have with these colonizers on it, Andrew Jackson, George Washington, all of these are colonizers. These are people who enslaved people. These are people who came to this land, reclassified us. These are people who decided to just say, we're going to print money. These people so gullible, they so docile, they believe anything. Have we not gotten to the place where we believe anything? Where we believe if we go to work and work hard forever, it's going to amount to millions of dollars? Stop lying to your kids. Telling you, I done went through the whole school route from elementary to middle to high school to college to doctoral to after doctoral. I'm still taking damn classes. And the one thing that I realize is that y'all got to stop lying to the youth about money. People love to say, oh, money don't grow on trees. Or where do it grow? We trying to figure out how much money does it cost for these billionaires, y'all believe billionaires, to go and buy islands and shit. How much does it cost for them to do all this stuff where they're going and they're owning all of these companies like Life Touch, and they around here touching the kids. It's like they got a digital catalog of people who they can just pick from to take K-nap. If you've been following my live, I need you to go watch Get Out, because a lot of the references that I like to point out comes from the movie Get Out. Because it's like, how did that movie get out? really, because they were kidnapping the melanated men in that movie, but nobody caught on to the trafficking then. They only waited for Epstein to do it, and in some kind of way it got leaked, and now white supremacy falls. It falls down. But Epstein had billions of dollars to just go and do all of these evil things, and he doesn't get punished for it. He doesn't get punished for it. Why is that? So, how many of us know that U.S. money is made up of 75% cotton and 25% linen? Did you guys know that you're going to work your whole damn life for some money that's really only cotton? So you say, oh no, we're not picking cotton no more. Hell, everybody picking cotton right now because money is cotton and linen. How much is the worth of the cotton that they're using to print the money that they put $100 bill on? You mean to tell me they're using the plant and putting a number on it and people believe that it's worth so much when they could just print it? The presidents could just print it. They could do whatever the hell they want. This is how we break out of the matrix, right? The majority of the money. So U.S. currency is not wood paper. It's about 75% cotton, 25% linen. So we got that fact, right? How many bills does it take to make $1 billion is the next question. How many bills? So we're going to use the highest bill possible. We're going to use the $100 bill, which is what they would probably print it in, right? Oh, cuz I need $1 billion, president. Or I need $1 billion, treasurer. Stop by tomorrow. We'll have that printed for you tomorrow. You could be a billionaire tomorrow. Meanwhile, you're going to work for $10 an hour. Fuck out of here, right? So it takes $10,100 bills to get to $1 billion. So the next question we would have is, well, how many bales of cotton is that? Because you don't know cotton comes in bales. We're going to tie cotton to cash conversion in real world dollars. The raw cotton market value as early as 2026. It costs 60 to 65 cents per pound for cotton. And it says the benchmark commodity price for cotton, which is the number 2 U.S. futures, that's traded price cotton dealers and farms use to value cotton in bulk. It is right now 60 to 65 cents per pound. How do we translate this into bales? Bale with cotton is B-A-L-E. So the standard cotton bale, B-A-L-E, weighs about 500 pounds. We said 10 million bills equals $1 billion. 10 million $100 bills. Now, a single U.S. bill weighs 1 gram. So 10 million bills, which is 10 million $100 bills makes $1 billion. And if each one of those bills weigh 1 gram, that's 10 million grams. So that's 10,000 kilograms, which is about 22,046 pounds. That's the total weight of $1 billion. 22,046 pounds. That's the total weight of $1 billion. So out of that 22,046 pounds that would make $1 billion, that is 75% cotton. So we would say what percentages of that is cotton. So that means it would be 16,000-ish pounds of cotton in the money that makes $1 billion. We're going somewhere with this, and I know it's a lot of math going on, but the math really helps you unlock the code. So then we say 1 bale of cotton, we already said that is 500 pounds, right? And if they need 16,000 pounds of cotton to produce $1 billion, you're going to divide the 16,000 pounds by 500 pounds. And what do you need? You need 33 bales of cotton to help you produce $1 billion. So when you think about these millionaires, all they really fronting is 33 bales of cotton. To print $1 billion in $100 bills, it takes 33 bales of cotton. 33 bales of cotton equals $1 billion. Following along? Why does this matter, guys? Because cotton is just land. Land is labor, and labor is value that gets extracted. So that $1 billion doesn't come from magic. This came from fields. This came from hands. This came from systems. This came from our ancestors being on their land, especially in the southeast, the Mississippi mound builders, and having their land seized, having their cotton farms and all of the other type of farms seized, and then these immigrants, these colonizers using the land, stealing the land, and extracting the cotton and exporting cotton, right? At some point, cotton became the king crop of America, and at some point, they used it to pretty much dominate the world and really, truly enslave us to the maximum of their ability. Even now, to this day. How much does it take to print $1 billion? And I want y'all to keep thinking about what number are we getting to. Some people might say, well, it might take $100,000 to print $1 billion, or it might take $1 million to print $1 billion, or it might take... You come up with the number in your head, and I'm going to give you the number at the end. But first, we're going to go through this math. Let's tie this to real world dollars. We already said a bale of cotton is 60 to 65 cents per, well, a pound of cotton is 60 to 65 cents per pound. And if you have bales of cotton, which is 500 pounds, it's about $300 to $330 per bale. Now, this is the real math we all been waiting for. Well, damn, Dr. Sean, when you going to tell us how much it costs to print $1 billion in cotton, right? If it's 33 bales. So 33 bales, if they going for $300 a bale, that is $9,900. You heard that right. $10,000 to print $1 billion. That's the cotton part of it. Yeah, you heard that right. You heard it right, I said. God, you heard it right. You heard it right. Let that sit with you for a second.
Oh, hell no, man.
Let that sit with you for a second, bro.
Stop the cap.
This way it get a little juicy, guys. This way it get a little juicy. All right? So even at the highest cost of cotton right now, we say 65 cents per pound. That would only be $10,725 worth of cotton in $10 billion. So it would cost roughly $10,000 to $11,000 worth of cotton to equal the amount of cotton fibers embedded in $1 billion $100 bills at today's cotton prices. Wow, insane. Facts, Dolores, it's insane. That's why people like Jeffrey Epstein can be a billionaire. You're like, how he became a billionaire? Well, they print money. It's simple. They print money. Give it to their friends. You feel me? Now, what's the big perspective about all of this? The material value of cotton fiber and paper money is tiny compared to the face value of money itself. And that's where the power lies, because people believe that this cotton is so expensive. They believe in this system, which is actually crumbling down right now. It led me to ask the question, what year was the $100 printed? Because if y'all printing money like this, when did y'all start this BS? When did y'all start printing money and making it worth nothing and lying to the people, and now they got to go to work and forcing them to go to work? And you'll notice that before emancipation, so-called proclamation, before they were doing slave raiding, slave coding, and black codes and all of these different things, they said we weren't human, we weren't free. They were going to war, trying to fight for us, fight for our land, and we were fighting them, the Seminole Wars, all of these different wars. And then they said, oh, we could just make them go to work for the money. When did this happen? The first $100 bill was issued in 1862. I have a problem with that because my ancestor, I have census records of my ancestors who exist here as inhabitants on this land before 1862. Our ancestors have documents of them being here even before money was created. And it ain't that long ago. 1862, if you think about it, it ain't that damn long ago. During 1862, this is before 1865, when they said, you guys can be free. You're free now. We're not going to traffic you anymore. We're not going to RAPE you anymore. We're not going to do all these heinous. We're not going to eat you anymore. You're free. Are we really? What happened? So 1862, this is 3 years before they made us free, there was the American Civil War. And they created the legal tender Act. Look it up. This was the first $100 note, was known as a demand note. It did not look like what we carry today. And you can go look this up, and if on the replay I will put images of these initial $100 bills, but they were bigger and they featured someone called Salmon P. Chase. Now y'all heard it, right? Chase Bank. Yeah, that's the guy. So let me take a sip of this coffee, cause what? It's getting a little creepy.
Give me back that filet fish. Give me that fish. Give me back that filet fish. Give me that fish.
Okay, so Salmon P. Chase, y'all heard of Chase Bank. Y'all got it. So he was the first person on the $100 bill, and it was issued to finance the Civil War. It was issued to finance enslaving people. It was issued to finance the Patriots fighting the Loyalists. So the Patriots were in the South, the Southeast. They were in Florida, Georgia, trying to reclassify the American Indians, the melanated people, and they didn't want us to be free of that because prisoners of war are the result of colonization, all of the things that they done. We were the prisoners of war, but they called us slave, but we was really the prisoners of a war, right? And then they started to war with each other. The top said, hey, we don't want you to unalive these people. We got to stop because they can go to work now. And the South was like, no, we got to keep doing this and torture. This is our culture. Evil is our culture. We can't let it go. They wanted to take us through there, right? But we wasn't having that. The Seminoles wasn't having that. The Niji wasn't having that. They kept doing peace treaties and breaking them. Salmon P. Chase, he was the first person on the $100 bill that they called the demand note in 1862, and it was issued to finance the Civil War. Then in 1914, the first modern Federal Reserve $100 bill then featured Benjamin Franklin, and it was a large bill. So it went from this guy, Salmon P. Chase, which you probably never heard of, but you heard of Chase Bank. Then it changed to Benjamin Franklin in 1914. So they had this guy on here for a long time. And then in 1928, the $100 bill shrunk in size, and it's the size that you see today. And Benjamin Franklin became the permanent face on the money. Now, I said all that just to give you a little history of money, but we're going somewhere deeper than that. So, remember those days. It was printed, the first $100 bill was printed in 1862. The modern size was changed in 1928. And then the current design with the strip and the security features, all this BS that they added to the cotton, that was 2013. So I said, I wanted to know about Salmon P. Chase. Who's this guy who was on the first $100 bill? And why was he on the first $100 bill? Because you'll notice if they putting people on the $100 bill, they don't have a good track record. But the first question I asked about Salmon P. Chase was, I said, did he own slaves? Because you'll find that the first 13 presidents, they all were enslavers. They enslaved people, up to 300 people, and they still got the title president. Andrew Jackson, he was going around doing war. He was unaliving like he was on GTA. He was unaliving like he was in a video game or something, but they put him on the money. So a lot of these prominent figures in their heads who are prominent leaders are actually unalivers of our people that get rewarded. That's like Epstein now. It's a big shaky thing because it's like, Epstein, wait. You aren't supposed to do this to your people. You're supposed to do this to their people. Fuck out of here, man. Y'all, what happened to all these 400 years y'all been doing this to our people? Using our skin for wounds. Using us for dinner. Using us for your pillow. Focus, Dr. Sean. Focus. Salmon P. Chase did not own slaves. In fact, he was one of the strongest anti-slavery political leaders of his time. But he was still involved with the whole system, and these were his buddies. It's kind of like Trump and Epstein now. Salmon P. Chase was like, no, we don't need to put them in slavery. We could just use the money, right? So he was a senator from Ohio. He was the governor of Ohio. And then he became the Secretary of Treasury under Abraham Lincoln. And later the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, all these words are just names that they made up to make themselves feel like they were white supremacy so they could feel bigger than they were. It was just a whole bunch of lies to control us. At the end of the day, you ain't got to know. He was basically all with the shit. He was nicknamed the Attorney General for Fugitive Slaves. He defended enslaved people in court who were captured. You see this word, you'll find it a lot in history when they talking about trafficking us. But in 2026, obviously this word means something now. Fuck out of here, man. When I read this stuff, I just get a little pissed off sometimes. Because it's like, what? So he helped found the early free soil movement. What do you mean free soil movement on our land? We couldn't move freely on our own land. They wanted to have us locked down. You had to have a pass to travel. You had to have a pass to be... That's backline. Salmon P. Chase, he was nicknamed the Attorney General for Fugitive Slaves, and he helped found the free soil movement. He became a leading figure in the formation of the Republican Party that y'all talk about today. It was originally an anti-expansion of slavery party. He actively fought against the expansion of slavery into new territory. The funny thing is, even though he opposed enslaving us, he still operated in the same federal system that allowed it. He still was a part of this whole system, regardless of his stance. And that's the issue that we have right now. When the whole system is full of BS, then you just have to crumble the whole thing. Everybody attached. This whole system, since back then, has been full of lies, right? How is this guy, Salmon P. Chase, who y'all know probably Chase Bank? Y'all heard of Chase Bank. This is what we talking about, this guy. Morgan P. Chase Bank, all these people, these banks that you hear of. And I even learned that Bank of America and a lot of these banks were involved with enslaving people and using us as collateral in their whole sick system. So I'm going to give y'all the name of all those banks who was a part of this shit. Why is the Treasury... How was this guy, Salmon P. Chase, the Treasury and printing money with his face on it? You see what I'm saying? So he got a grandson who broke. Now you know he gonna print him some money, right? Are we really thinking that they're not doing this? If my face is on the money, you know I'm gonna print me 100,000. You know I'm gonna print me about 1 million. That's my face. Let me get 1 million of those, bitch. You already know what time it is. They made themselves in charge of printing the money, and that's when things is already not right. But this is when they really start to do too much. And that's how we got here, where inflation is high as hell. It's not going to go down because the money ain't worth shit. When Salmon P. Chase was the Secretary of Treasury from 1861 to 1864, he oversaw the creation of the first federally issued paper money. And yes, his face appeared on it while he was still alive. And it wasn't illegal at the time. Yeah, he was alive. He was a treasurer. He said, well, I just used my own face on the money. This is what they did. Why was this money even printed? Anyways, most people ask, why would they need to start printing money? Because back then we had farms. We could go and get the chicken eggs out the cock-a-doodle-doo in the morning. My uncles and my great uncles, they had cows and chicken and beef, and they used to sell to the store. We was self-sufficient. We had so much land, you could grow whatever fruit and vegetable you wanted. This is how it was. You didn't really need money. You could go to the farmer's market and trade, and we had our own, really, money. We had our own system. We didn't need their system, and they saw that, and they said, oh, no, we're banning your system. You have to use our system, or we're going to lock you up, and you don't have a choice in the matter. And people think we just folded. No, they started doing these things and kidnapping and trafficking and acting like it was okay, making up scientific words like drapetomania, which means runaway slave, because they said, what's wrong with you? You don't want to be captured? We take better care of you than you could take care of you. This is psychological crackhead type shit. Let's just call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. Anywho, so during the Civil War, the federal government was running out of money fast. They didn't have no money. They was stealing all the gold, stealing everything. They was just destroying everything. Burning shit. They was just doing whatever. Trying to go to war against these psycho lunatic people down in the South who wanted to keep being evil. Kind of like Florida now. Florida has a lot of laws and shit that they do that nobody else in the country does, because that's just who they are. The leaders that they call leaders. Right? So, President Abraham Lincoln needed to fund the Union Army. Gold and silver reserves that they had stolen wasn't enough anymore. So what did Congress do? The same Congress y'all talk about now, who supposed to have your best interests at heart. Congress is gonna save us, guys. Congress save us, y'all. Like, what?
Not around here, partner. Not around here. Not around here.
Not around here, partner. It's not happening. So, 1862, Congress passed the Legal Tender Act. This allowed the Treasury to issue paper money, the same money that we calculated from the cotton they were stealing, from the farms that they stole, from the plantations they stole. Most people don't even know that they didn't get control of Florida until after the Seminole War. Those plantations didn't appear in Florida till the 1800s. But let y'all tell it, you was doing all this stuff. You had us on a lot like slaves. Stop the fucking cap, man. Stop the cap. 1862, they passed the Legal Tender Act. This allowed the same Treasury right now to print money not backed directly by gold. This was 1862. Now, they would like to think that Nixon, in I think it's 1970 something, that he took the money off of the gold standard, but it was never on the gold standard. That's what I determined by studying how much cotton is in the money. It was never on a gold standard. They've been lying since they printed the first $100 bill. They can make themselves millionaires overnight. They can make their government powerful overnight by enslaving our mind, by forcing us to go to work to rely on this fake ass money. They could do this. Congress started printing money, which was not backed by gold, and they called this shit greenbacks. Because it wasn't backed by nothing but just the color green, right? What? So Salmon P. Chase, he was the treasurer of secretary and was in charge of implementing that system, which is why he put his own face on the money. He said, I'm going to put my face on the $100 bill since this is worth $100, right? He put his face on the money. Now, this grew public criticism by putting a living person on the money. So in 1866, they banned living people appearing on the money. And they said, you know what? Only deceased people can appear on the money. And this rule came because Salmon P. Chase put his own self on the money. And they was like, no, you can't be putting yourself on the money and printing your own money and making yourself rich. They talking about he financed the war and all. Listen, how can you not when you the one printing the money? Stop hyping these people up. They was so big and bad when really what they was doing is just stealing and making shit up. Who was the first treasurer? And this took me to the first treasurer of the United States, of this fake ass government, Alexander Hamilton. If you pull out your $10 bill, that's Alexander Hamilton on the $10 bill. In 1789, he was appointed by George Washington, the first president, and also an enslaver of people. Right? I always remind y'all that these presidents were really just people who enslaved us to get control and to be leaders. They're not really what they say they are. Just people think Trump is a president. He really just like what they call an agent. He really just somebody here like a puppet almost to break this shit down even further, to make you go back to work, right? So Hamilton didn't just manage the money. Hamilton, who was on the $10 bill, the first treasurer appointed by George Washington, he established the first national bank. He structured federal debt system, created federal credit. He designed customs, taxes, and he helped shape the U.S. Mint, right? So he was responsible for this colonized capitalistic system. And he is on the $10 bill. So I said, when were the first cotton plantations taken in the United States? Because this ties back to how much cotton is now. In the 1600s, they had small-scale cotton plantation stealing in Virginia, Spanish Florida, and the Carolinas. How was this tied to Wall Street, banking, slavery, work requirements, all of that? Cotton wasn't just agriculture. It was finance. It was banking. It was federal policy braided all together. In 1860 now, cotton made up 60% of the U.S. exports. This was right around the time we had our farms that they stole, and they were making us pick our own cotton on our own land and then exporting it and creating money. The United States, which is our fucking land, supplied 2/3 of the world's cotton. Stolen. That you're going to work for right now. It was global capital. Now, this get a little crazy because I said, how is this connected to Wall Street? Cotton was traded as a commodity contract, meaning merchants borrow against future cotton harvest. They borrowed against how much cotton we was going to pick, right? Banks issued loans using enslaved people as collateral. What the fuck? So you mean to tell me y'all going to nappers traffic us enter the United States, and then put a loan on our head where if we don't pick enough cotton and we get sold to the bank, fuck out of here, man. That's what they was doing. Insurance companies insure enslaved people as property. Yes, insurance companies like Aetna, bring your ass to the front. Northern banks financed Southern plantations, so New York became the federal clearinghouse for cotton. Southern plantations grew it, which is Southern stolen lands. The Northern banks financed it, and Wall Street, the Wall Street you hear now, used it. So enslaved people as capital assets. Yes. Our people who were KIDNAP POWs were bought with bank loans, mortgage properties, used as collateral, insured equipment, appraised for credit worthiness. They were legally treated as movable capital assets. Ain't that trafficking? Ain't that Epstein? Ain't that the same shit? Movable capital assets. This is how slavery tied directly into the banking systems. Now, let's connect the federal power. So Alexander Hamilton, he built the system. Salmon P. Chase, he turned the money to greenbacks, and they started printing the money to help finance the war. Then came the slave codes, which enslaved people were property. They were criminalized for literacy. So you could become enslaved just for reading. You could become enslaved just for not having a job. You could become enslaved for being out at midnight. You could become enslaved for looking at somebody. You could become enslaved for no reason at this point, because they just needed some kind of way to put you back to picking cotton, to being in prison, the prison, pipeline, convict leasing. Oh, they just needed some reason. If you got a book, you gonna be a slave. You feel me? Didn't make no fucking sense. But this is the real, and I need you to understand the real. Don't try to sugarcoat it. That's why white supremacy has to fall, because it's built on BS, right? They criminalized literacy, restricted movement, created forced labor conditions, and protected slaveholder property rights. Crazy, right? These systems forced labor through legal penalties. Now we're going to go over the full circuit. So you had land seized, cotton grown, enslaved labor extracted, cotton exported, profits flowed from the northern banks, Wall Street trading this as a commodity, and we get to where we are right now. So I'm going to end this by telling y'all the banks that were part of this. JP Morgan, Chase. Now you know where Chase come from. That come from Salmon P. Chase, the man who was originally printing money. Right? You got Citibank. They underwrote Southern cotton exports. Bank of America. They were connected to slave holding clients and plantation financing. And we already said Aetna. So that's all that I have time for today before this thing dies. I hope y'all learned something about this system that we live in. These Epstein files. I hope you realize that to be a billionaire, it only takes $10,000, probably $20,000 if you add the linen, for them to print money. So when you talk about Epstein being a billionaire and all these things, then you got to realize that these people really are psychopaths. All right? I guess that's the whole moral of the story. They're psychopaths. So don't ever feel like money makes you, because our ancestors survived without it. Yes, it makes life easier. But I don't want y'all to go and just get so bent out of shape working little for nothing. Go and learn these systems. Teach your kids financial literacy. And use this thing like a tool, because it's all damn made up. Now tell me, did y'all think that it costs less than $20,000 to print $1 billion? Did you really think that? And how does this change how you look at money? I'm out of here. I will see y'all in the next live. Bye, guys.
Just got a bed and a cake.